What computing hardware or just any kind of even software design are you do you find beautiful from your own work, from other people's work that you're just we were just talking about the battleground of flaws and mistakes and errors, but things that were just beautifully done. Is there something that pops to mind?
Well, when things are beautifully done, usually there's a thought out set of abstraction layers.
So the whole thing works in unison nicely.
Yes. And when I say abstraction layer, that means two different components, when they work together, they work independently. They don't have to know what the other one is doing.
So that decoupling.
Yeah. So the famous one was the network stack. Like there's a 7-layer network stack,
Yep.
data transport and protocol and all the layers. And the innovation is when they really got that right. Because networks before that didn't define those very well. The layers could innovate independently, and occasionally the layer boundary would the interface would be upgraded. And that let, the design space breathe. And you could do something new in layer 7 without having to worry about how layer 4 worked.
Right.
And so good design does that. And you see it in processor designs. When we did the Zen design at AMD, we made several components very modular. And, my insistence at the top was I wanted all the interfaces defined before we wrote the RTL for the pieces. One of the verification leads said, if we do this right, I can test the pieces so well independently when we put it together, we won't find all these interaction bugs because the floating point knows how the cache works. And I was a little skeptical, but he was mostly right. That the modularity of the design greatly improved the quality.
Is that universally true in general? Would you say about good designs, the modularity is usually?
Well, we talked about this before. Humans are only so smart, and we're not getting any smarter, right? But the complexity of things is going up.
Yeah.
So, a beautiful design can't be bigger than the person doing it. It's just, their piece of it. Like the odds of you doing a really beautiful design of something that's way too hard for you is low, right? If it's way too simple for you, it's not that interesting. It's like, well, anybody could do that. But when you get the right match of your expertise and, mental power to the right design size, that's cool, but that's not big enough to make a meaningful impact in the world. So now you have to have some framework to design the pieces.
Yes.
So that the whole thing is big and harmonious, but when you put it together, it's it's sufficiently interesting to be used, and so that's like a beautiful design is.
Matching the limits of that human cognitive capacity to the module you can create, and then creating a nice interface between those modules, and thereby, do you think there's a limit to the kind of beautiful complex systems we can build with this kind of modular design? It's like, if we build increasingly more complicated, you can think of like the internet. Okay, let's scale it down.
Well,
you can think of like social network, like Twitter, as one computing system, but those are little modules, right?
But it's built on so many components nobody at Twitter even understands.
Right.
So if an alien showed up and looked at Twitter, he wouldn't just see Twitter as a beautiful, simple thing that everybody uses, which is really big. You would see the network it runs on, the fiber optics, the data's transported, the computers. The whole thing is so bloody complicated. Nobody at Twitter understands it. And so
you think that's what the alien would see? So yeah, if an alien showed up and looked at Twitter, or looked at the various different networked systems that you can see on Earth.
So imagine they were really smart and they could comprehend the whole thing. And then they sort of, evaluated the human and thought, this is really interesting. No human on this planet comprehends the system they built.
No individual, would they even see individual humans? That's like we humans are very human-centric, entity-centric. And so we think of us as the central organism and the networks as just a connection of organisms. But from a perspective of an alien, from an outside perspective, it seems like
I get it. We're the ants, and they'd see the ant colony.
The ant colony, yeah. Or the result of production of the ant colony, which is like cities, and it's
Yeah.
In that sense, humans are pretty impressive. The modularity that we're able to, and how robust we are to noise and mutation, all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's because it's stress tested all the time.
Yeah.
You build all these cities with buildings, and you get
Yeah.
earthquakes occasionally, and
Wars,
wars, earthquakes,
viruses every once in a while.
changes in business plans for like shipping or something. Like as long as it's all stress tested, then it keeps adapting to the situation. So it's a curious phenomenon.